What if I told you that the most powerful warriors in existence stood helpless, watching their creator die? What if the angels who could split mountains with a whisper were commanded to do nothing, while humanity tortured the God they served? This is the story they don't want you to know about what really happened at Calvary. Michael's hands trembled as he gripped his sword. Not from fear, never from fear, but from the effort of restraint. Below him, the first nail pierced flesh, and his entire being screamed to act. His fist clenched so hard around the hilt that starlight leaked between his fingers. "I can't," he whispered to Uriel, his voice cracking like a boy's. "I can't just watch this happen to him. And telling this, I feel that someone among you knows exactly what Michael was feeling. That desperate need to do something, anything, when you're watching someone you love suffer. If you've ever felt completely helpless while someone dear to you was in pain, right, Helpless? God sees your heart." Uriel stood beside him, tears of liquid fire streaming down his face. His light, usually steady as sunrise, flickered like a candle in wind. "Neither can I, but he commanded us not to interfere." Commands. Michael spat the word. "What kind of command is this? We could end this in a heartbeat. One word from me and 1,000,000 angels would." "Michael." Jesus' voice cut through the spiritual realm, weak but unmistakably authoritative. "Stay." The Archangel's sword arm twitched. He had never, in all of eternity, struggled with obedience. But he had never watched his God bleed before either. On the cross, Jesus' human body shook with more than pain, fear, real human terror at what was coming. His eyes searched the crowd desperately, looking for Peter's face, for John's, for anyone who might understand. When the second nail pierced, he bit his lip to keep from crying out, and a sound escaped anyway. Raw, broken, utterly human. "Father," he whispered through tears, "I'm scared." Michael lurched forward, actually took 3 steps toward Earth before Uriel caught his arm. "No!" Uriel's voice was sharp with panic. "You can't. Why not?" Michael whirled on him, eyes blazing. "Give me one good reason why we should let them do this to him." "Because," Uriel faltered, his voice dropping to a whisper, "because he asked us to." The angel of revelation, who saw the purpose behind everything, who understood the grand design, even he looked lost. "But this," his voice broke, "this makes no sense. Right now, I feel in my heart that someone listening has been in this exact place, where nothing makes sense anymore, where even the things you thought you understood about God feel completely unclear. If you're going through a season where God's plan feels impossible to understand, right? Confused, you're not alone in this darkness. Below them, darkness fell across the land. Not the gentle darkness of night, but something else, something hungry. As Jesus breathed his last, the veil in the temple tore, and both angels felt it, a ripping and the fabric of reality itself. "He's going down," Uriel breathed. "Into hell." "He's actually going," They watched their God descend into the realm of the damned. And, for the first time in existence, both archangels reached for each other's hands. Michael's fingers, still shaking from unused power, gripped Uriel's like a drowning man grips driftwood. "What if we're wrong?" Michael's voice was barely audible. "What if this isn't the plan? What if we just let them kill God?" Uriel squeezed his hand tighter. "I don't know. I've never not known before, but I don't know." 3 days. 3 days of not knowing. 3 days of angels pacing the heavens like caged tigers, checking and rechecking the tomb, wondering if they had just witnessed the greatest victory or the most terrible defeat in cosmic history. When the stone rolled away and Jesus walked out, not floating, not materializing, but walking on legs that should have been broken, Michael dropped to his knees, not in worship this time, but in relief, so profound his legs couldn't hold him. "He knew," Uriel whispered, his light blazing bright again. "The whole time, he knew. Even when he was scared, even when he was dying, he knew." Michael looked at his hands, still trembling now for different reasons. All that power, all that strength, and the hardest thing he ever asked me to do was nothing. Jesus appeared before them then, still bearing his wounds, but alive, gloriously alive. He looked at both angels with something like sympathy. "Did you think I needed your rescue?" he asked gently. "We thought," Michael started, then stopped. "Yes, real power is walking through suffering and coming out transformed." Uriel wiped his face, leaving trails of silver where the tears had been. "So when humans ask why we don't stop their pain, you tell them what you learned here. Sometimes love looks like presence, not prevention. Sometimes the greatest rescue happens not by avoiding the valley, but by walking through it." Michael resheathed his sword, finally understanding why it had felt so wrong in his hand during those 3 days. His strength wasn't meant for that battle. "The next time you feel helpless watching someone you love suffer," Jesus continued, "remember that I felt helpless too. I felt scared too. And I chose to trust anyway." The words hit Michael like a revelation. Every human assignment, every time he'd wanted to intervene, to fix, to fight, every time he'd had to watch people make painful choices, walk difficult paths. "That's not weakness," Jesus said, reading his thoughts. "That's the hardest kind of courage there is." As Jesus spoke these words, both angels realized they weren't just hearing instructions for future assignments. They were receiving the blueprint for love itself, the kind that chooses to stay and suffer alongside, trusting that some victories can only be won by walking through the darkness. The crucifixion hadn't just been about salvation. It had been about showing every created being what love actually looks like when it's tested. Michael looked at his sword one more time, seeing it differently now. Still a weapon, still powerful, but no longer the first tool love reaches for. Sometimes, the most powerful thing a warrior can do is put his weapon down and simply be present in the pain. And sometimes, the angels watching over you aren't there to prevent your suffering. They're there to prove that you're not alone in it.